Smart Alex Show, baby! All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Today we have a very special guest with us on the Smart Alex Show podcast. This gentleman is a digital marketing wizard with an MBA from Pepperdine University, an extremely humble but accomplished young lad who casually throws in things like, I don't know, I had a New York Times best-selling book, or I hung out with a couple celebrities, just like it's nothing. The best at what he does and the smartest marketing professor I've had the pleasure of meeting, and yet shows not even an ounce of hubris and lets us students just call him Chris. So welcome, Chris Aarons. Thank you for coming on, man. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Super to be here. Super to be here.
All right, man. Well, let's dive right on into it. So
All right.
what do you do within the digital marketing realm, and how'd you know that's what you wanted to do?
So within the digital marketing realm, I do pretty much everything digital and traditional marketing for a host of different clients, both small and large, nonprofit as well as corporate. Um, if I look back into when I was in high school, I was like marketing things, events, things like that for my friends. So I think I've always had a knack, and I think everybody has a knack for something. And I didn't realize it at the time. And I started doing, I went into marketing in college, but then I transferred to PR for some reason.
Uh,
And I quickly realized after I graduated that I was more of a marketer than a PR person. So it took me about 10 years to get back to it. And I've been doing it ever since. And I guess the biggest thing was in 2006, which is a year before Twitter, by the way, I started AMD's social media program. And I was a department of one. And that's when I got digital and marketing and kind of moved away from PR full time after that. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
awesome, awesome. So I wanted to dig into that a little bit deeper, Chris. So
Sure.
you said that you realized you were better suited for marketing as opposed to PR. What were the main differences you noticed between the two? Because I feel like the two overlap in a lot of different ways. But what would you say the biggest differences are for someone that would excel in PR versus marketing?
Uh, well, I think you have to be a good writer in either one, but PR probably more so. And I think you have to be great with relationships in both, but PR maybe more so. I think the biggest thing for me, and this is less true today than it was in, 2000, um, is that for me, the big turning point was I was asked to do a PR campaign for this very notable influencer back then, or an analyst back then, I should say. And I got him a ton of great coverage, but he only got a small blurb in the New York Times.
Mhm.
And the next day, when I'm telling him about all the amazing things I did for him, he comes back and he says, "Yeah, but what about the New York Times? I only got a small blurb in there." And I'm like, "Well, I pitched the guy, I know the guy, I did everything I could, but that's what he wrote." And she goes, "Well, that was the most important one to me." And it's like, well, that seems kind of crappy. I mean,
Yeah.
I did everything right, but the guy didn't write. You write what you wanted him to write. And so I went back to my friend who I knew there, and I said, "What happened? Why didn't you write something bigger?" And he goes, "Ah, Chris, I'm sorry. I just got in a fight with my wife and I didn't feel like writing today. So I just put something up. I'll help you out on the next one." And so at that point in time, I realized a lot of PR was not based on my efforts. It was based on what others perceived my efforts to be or perceived their own
I
personal
see.
circumstance. And that felt really shitty to me. And
Yeah.
so that's when I really started pushing towards marketing more, because that's something that I can control. And if I do it right, I succeed. If I don't do it right, I can learn and figure out how to succeed. But my success is not baked into the whims of somebody who has an audience. And I didn't like that.
No doubt. I totally see what you're talking about. Marketing seems like you're more in control of what you can do, the campaign you want to put out, and PR is more like, what that person thinks of you, y'all's relationship, and how they're feeling on that day that they're gonna write something.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I never thought of it that way. So
And
what was AMD, man? So you were thinking, in 3D chess, a step ahead of everyone before Twitter
no,
even
no,
came
God,
out.
God, that sounds so amazing. Yeah, no, I needed a job. I'd been a
Uh,
consultant for a long time, and my biggest client, Rackspace, decided to restructure everything. And so I was going to lose a huge chunk of my income. And a friend of mine worked at AMD, and he said, "Hey, we have this job where you would basically do PR for our partners like Microsoft and HP." And that was the job. But as it turned out, we started doing more with influencers and social media and things like that. And when I left AMD, my budget was actually bigger for my one person department than it was for the whole department, because people were just giving me money because they saw the value of what social media and influencer marketing and all that stuff that I was doing
Wow.
generated. And it was more exciting than, you know, traditional PR and things like that. So I don't think I was playing 3D chess. I think that's a dumb way to put that. Um, but I think I got lucky. I took advantage of the opportunity, which I think is a big part of it, and then parlayed that and kept learning and saw that there was something here and that people were excited about it. And there was a more gratifying way to deliver results than just begging some journalists to write about you,
For sure.
when you could build a relationship with an influencer who truly loved the product and wasn't just writing about it because it was their job.
No doubt. That's interesting. So what was around during that era when before Twitter had came around? Like this is I'm assuming like the early 2000s, right?
Yeah, Facebook, blogs. Well, it's 2006, so
Or
Facebook,
2006.
blogs, but mostly blogs and news sites. So we were dealing with a lot of Microsoft influencers who were talking about Windows Vista, which was coming out around then. So that's the big thing that was going on, and so I shouldn't say we, I built a program that basically leveraged those. And I'll tell you one thing. So when you probably don't know about this, but Windows Vista came out in 2006, and generally people were like, okay, it's new, but it's problematic and it's
Mhm.
going to have a lot of bugs, so whatever. But we were fighting Intel tooth and nail at that point in time, and Intel always had 100 times the money, 100 times the people, 100 times everything that we wanted. And so I put together a whole program to get the influencers to talk about Vista with Microsoft, with HP, and how much AMD was leaning into it and how Intel was falling behind us.
I see.
And it really generated a lot of buzz and a lot of sales. So, it worked.
Awesome. That's awesome. So what do you think about the way the whole social media, digital realm has evolved into what it is today? Like I don't know if you've seen like Social Dilemma on Netflix. Like what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on the way things have evolved and how do you utilize it for the better as opposed to, the worst like we see in like Social Dilemma and things of that nature?
Yeah, I think I mean I'm not terribly thrilled about it. I mean, you know, I think there's something wrong with a world where a Kardashian or a Karjenner or whatever the hell they are can
Mhm.
command $5 million a post for doing nothing of value to society.
Mhm.
So I think that's a problem. I think that all of the misinformation and the lack of policing that's gone on to this date is a problem, from a societal thing, and it's unsettling to me
Mhm.
and others, I'm
Sure.
sure. Um, but then again, it is the truest. I mean, from a brand and marketing standpoint, if you, Alec, love, I don't know, watches, computers, whatever it
Mhm.
happens to be, and you can talk about my product and talk to your loyal fans about this product and why it's awesome, and help me sell it because you're a third party endorser and influencer, that makes everything a lot better and a lot cleaner. So I think there's that side that's always been there, and that's what I was tapping into in 2006. It's now we have micro, nano, and sub nano influencers where
No.
you can reach out and find somebody who has maybe 50 of the right followers, and that
Yeah.
is a program or could be a program.
No doubt. I think that's very true. And something that comes to mind there is like Gymshark, as opposed to where
Yeah.
everyone was spending, huge amounts of money getting like really big influencers or spending money on like, um, commercials to broadcast on like TV stations. Gymshark went the nano influencer route. Like, all right,
Yeah.
who's the biggest, gym bro or gym gal at every, Gold's Gym here and there, and let's get them to endorse Gymshark, and then boom, over a span of a few years, you hit everyone just in the right market at the right, micro influencer level, and now they've built what they have today. So I think that says a lot. But so what do you think? What makes good digital marketing? Let's dive into that. Like I should know, right? You taught me
Yeah,
about it all
yeah.
semester. But
You only have it on two
in your
tests.
words, what makes great digital marketing? You know, from the theme to the right influencers to the site, like what really brings it all together?
The whole thing is that, and this is kind of my thing that pisses me off, is that if you start it at the top and you think about we want to be the right brand doing the right things that's worthy of evangelism, digital is perfectly straightforward and it almost defines what you're going to do next and everything else. What we see a lot is people just diving in to do digital tactics without trying to build the brand. Your brand exists to bring people together and evangelize on something, to solve a problem, right? That jobs to be done thing we talked about in class.
Yeah.
And um, I think a lot of brands don't start at that top level. They just kind of go through the motions and they're not trying to be the right brand doing the right things that's worthy of evangelism. And so what you get is random acts of digital that don't seem to tie together. And if the brand's strong enough, if they have enough leverage, they'll be fine, but they never succeed and they're always spending more effort, time, and money than they should be than a brand like HEB, who does everything seemingly right. And when they don't, they correct it quickly. And so they don't have to spend quite as much. And we all tell everybody about how much we love HEB, how much we love Glossier, how much we love Kendra Scott. They don't have to spend as much, and they get much more of our love and loyalty because of that. And there's about a thousand, 100,000 of those brands out there, but there's also 100,000 of the other kind that are just
No doubt.
crappy companies. There's room for all of them, but that's what good digital is, and that's where it gets effective and fun, and you get people actually selling your brand because you are doing the right thing.
Absolutely, man. So I wasn't too familiar with HEB because I'm from
Mhm.
Dallas, right? So until I moved down south to Austin, I love HEB. They do everything right, right? And so what do you think really ties into evangelism? Like when you say evangelism, for those out there that haven't, taken a digital marketing class, like what makes you worthy of evangelism?
So the brand has to speak directly to you. It has to be your brand. Like, I don't care how many times you show me a Buick or a Lexus, those brands don't represent me personally. And there's nothing you can do to change my mind. I've never seen a Buick or a Lexus and said, oh, I could see myself driving that. Actually, I've seen Buick and Lexus said, I would never want to be caught dead driving that car. And there's nothing wrong with them.
Uh,
It's just that for whatever reason, their brand persona and my personal persona do not match, right? And with that said, there are thousands, millions of people who love Lexus, would never drive anything but a Lexus, and that brand persona meets with them and they evangelize them. And so I think that's what it is, that how are you putting all of this together so that it feels like an extension of me? Now, I happen to drive, Volvos, and I have a Ford Mustang, Shelby, and those brands represent me. And so I evangelize for them, and for whatever reason they do, but I'm not a Corvette guy. And if you're a car person at all, and I think you are, that's really what it comes down to, is those people will always buy that stuff. And it goes across everything. There are women who call themselves Tide gals. Not my term, their term. I'm a Tide gal. I'm a Tide girl. And, these are 40, 50-year-old women. I'm like, what do you mean by that? And they're like, if my husband comes home with anything but Tide, he's doing his own laundry. That is a quote from somebody I've talked to when I did research on Tide. And so, Tide, for whatever reason, it's not a better detergent.
uh,
It just, Tide represents them and it feels like what they want, and it's consistent and it's true and it's never let them down. And so they're going to tell everybody it's Tide or nothing. And that's what evangelism gets you, is that they push the product even when not even asked. I mean, I know these people are Tide gals because they've told me,
yeah.
just because I might have mentioned something about detergent and they're like, stop, it's Tide or nothing. That's where the conversation
That's
starts and ends.
crazy. Yeah, I think
But
people
but
underestimate
we're
how powerful like brand
we're
loyalty.
like that with everything.
Yeah.
We're like that with a whole. There's a host of products that we'll just take anything for. And in a pandemic, if you can't get Lysol, you're going to use something else. You can't get Purell, you're going to use something else. All right. So there's a whole host of products that there are acceptable new brands that you are willing to try or open to trying.
No
And then
doubt.
there's new brands that come out that you're open to trying, or you think you'll give it a shot. And then there's this core group of products, this nucleus in your body that you say, I want to own those products. And if those products have enough people and they're passionate enough, these brands go. And again, Kendra Scott, I mean, it's very nice jewelry. You and I
Yeah,
don't seem to wear too much jewelry, but it's very nice jewelry. But it's not the world's greatest jewelry in the history of the
for
planet
sure.
that's ever been designed or developed. It's just that everything that is done in the packaging and the way they present themselves in the stores and the online ads and the website is all targeted to a certain individual, certain woman usually, and they fall in love with it and they have Kendra Scott throughout their closet. My wife does. I know several of the women in our class
Yeah,
did.
no
And you
doubt.
can see them. They walk in, it's Kendra Scott. And that's the brand that represents them. And the same with Glossier, the same with cars, the same with computers. Mac people are like this versus PC people,
For sure.
iPhone people versus
iPhone versus
Android.
Android,
It's,
yep.
yeah. So that's what it is.
Yeah, and then iPhone versus Android's a whole other deal, right? Where it's like you think differently of someone when the green message pops up as opposed to the blue, and
Well,
just
and
like
we talked about that in class. People
yeah,
get
yeah,
less dates on Android, right? So, there's something to be said, but that's one of those things is that Android people are usually Android people because they're resisting the Apple tide and the Apple fanboys and how, I'm not going to pay extra for the same
yeah,
thing. It's like, well, you're not paying extra for the same thing. You're paying less for less because Apple provides an experience, a 100% end-to-end experience. Android doesn't. And you're willing to do that, but your personality, your mentality is that that's more me than Apple.
for sure. For
And
sure,
that's
yeah.
fine.
So I used to consider myself an Android guy myself, like early on in high school, but it was like, I got a Mac and it's like, yeah, iMessage, you got, and then you get the iPhone, you've got iMessage on there. It's just also compatible across different mediums. It was just so hard to resist, right? But I did think like, later on in college, like I'll talk to people like one of my friends, she's like, oh, I'm not gonna talk to him. He's like popping up with green messages, and I'm like, damn, humans are just so shallow, you know?
Well, but Apple has spent
Yeah,
billions of dollars tapping into the psychology of most of us to
for sure.
convince us to not buy an Apple product, but to buy the Apple experience,
Yeah,
which means that most of us have a watch, a phone, a computer, headphones now, maybe soon a car, right?
yeah,
Um, so, I mean, and then probably a tablet as well. So, Apple
yeah,
has strategically done this. And again, they are one of those brands who've tapped into their target market and made them evangelists for their brand. And these people don't consider anything else. Like, I don't care what Samsung comes out with, I don't care what LG comes out with, whoever it happens to be. It's not an Apple, it's not an Apple iOS. And you
mm,
can show me what it can do. You can tell me all the specs, and I will yawn and turn away from the
exactly,
screen just as soon as I can because I'm not interested.
exactly. Because
But Apple's trained me that way, and it speaks to me, and therefore Apple is an extension of me, just like Apple's now an extension of you. And
that's
that's what digital gets you. Good digital.
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, when I think of Apple, I just think of one of those brands like just fierce, fierce loyalty, and they've tapped into the psychology of everyone in terms of just getting them hooked on the product. And when I think of like just powerful brands, like to me, like what comes to mind is like Nike and
Yep.
Apple. Those are two of the biggest ones because like they don't market their products; they market the ideology behind it. Like Apple being different, being a genius, Nike being victorious, being this allure of greatness, as opposed to just marketing the phone or marketing, some shoes, some cleats.
Right.
So how does I love this quote from your class. How does like being a narcissistic bastard, like humans, broad spectrum, being narcissistic bastards, play into marketing?
So that is from our class where we talk about the power of customers and selling to people just like you. And the I say it probably too much, and I probably shouldn't say it to undergrads. But that being said, all of us tend to be narcissistic bastards, as we tend to love ourselves, and it's hard to buy things. I mean, right now it's even harder because of the pandemic. But There's a ton of choices. There's a ton of brands. And if you're not familiar with that brand, if you haven't locked in and become, found the tide in that brand, um, then you have to go out and you have to do a search. And that search can be painful trying to figure out, is it this one? Is it that one? Which brand, which models, which specs, which features, where to buy, how to buy, all that stuff. And so the shortcut for our little reptilian brains is, if I know that Alec loves what I love, and I saw you buy the latest iPhone or this monitor or this watch or this car, whatever else it happens to be, then I can simply say, I don't have to do all the hard, laborious search work and determine what I'm going to buy. I just say, Alec and I love the same things. I recognize that he is awesome like I am, and therefore I'm just going to buy what he buys because I trust him, because you are a reflection of me in my mind. And it's basically a digital marketing consumer buying version of what's called mirroring, which is if you sit across from somebody in a room and you mirror their gestures, mirror their facial expressions, mirror their tone, they will like you at a rate of like 5 or 6
Yeah.
to 1 over the guy next to you or the woman next to you. And I did this a couple months ago with a new client I had. I can't tell him I did it though, but I saw he had some very interesting mannerisms, the way he leaned, the way he gestured. And so I started doing that right back at him, and not I'm honest to God, it was not 3 minutes later. He stops what he was saying and says, there's something about you I just like. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I just want to jump up and down and say, I got you. I I just mirrored you and you fell hook, line, and sinker for it. And that's because
Got it.
we all love ourselves just a little too much. And when I find somebody who is in my bubble in this, vernacular, and it's, if you and I are, in my mind, simpatico, and you love what I love, and you buy something, then I don't have to do it. I just have to buy something that Alec buys, and that makes it easier to buy. And that's where, we need social proof, but that social proof has to resonate with me. It can't just be a random collection of people. Like if I see the Kardashians or Kardashians buy something, that turns me off,
For sure.
right? But if I see somebody
Right.
like you, or somebody, one of my friends, like my friend Hector just emailed me, um, if I see Hector buying something, well, hell, it must be good. Hector bought it because I value the hell out of him, because Hector and I agree on most everything. So it just makes it a shortcut for buying.
No doubt, that's interesting. That it's a shortcut, and in like the eyes of the consumer, it's a mental shortcut to say I don't have to go look for these products. I don't have to go look for these things and do the research. It's like there's this influencer that I feel relates to who I am.
Well, hold on. It's not even an influencer. In some
Yeah,
cases, it could be a review.
yeah,
So, like, let's say you were going to buy, I don't know, a pen, a watch. I don't know. I have a lot of watches because I'm selling them this week. Um, but whatever you're going to buy, and you read a review, and the person says, I like these things about the watch, but I hate this. All of a sudden, if I like those things about the product and I hate those things about the product, then even that one paragraph, 25-word review, all of a sudden we've made a connection because he or she likes and hates the same things I do. So now I've been given a shortcut because I know this person evaluates things the way I do. So in some cases, it doesn't even have to be a long-term
no doubt.
influential relationship. It could be 25 words that just feel like that's the way I would have written the review. So therefore, this guy, this girl, whoever it happens to be, is the person who is now going to be my influencer in that moment.
You
And
see,
that's social proof.
so it can be in the moment, short term or even long term, and it can be like it just has to be a connection, whether it be long term or brief, just some sense of relatability in terms like we think the same on some scale. That's
Yeah.
why that's your opinion on it.
Yeah, and it works in reverse too. Like, let's say you're reading a review and you see, like we all read the 1 stars and the 5 stars, right? Like, we got to see what the 1 star is, see if it's truly as bad as what if our worst fears are going to be confirmed. And so you'll read a 1 star, and if it sounds like the individual is bitching and moaning and they're a crazy or psychopathic person, or they're bitching about
Oh,
something that you don't agree with, you completely discount their review. And so in some cases, those 1 stars can be social proof because, oh, all of the 1 stars are idiots, quote unquote, because they don't evaluate things the way I evaluate them, or they seem like they're off their rocker to me. So therefore, those can be social proof points as well as the 5 stars.
awesome.
the lack of valid negative in your mind becomes a positive.
I see what you're saying. There's a lot of psychology behind it, man, and just makes me think like what all goes into like Amazon, the way they set up, the even the colors on the buttons. Like we talked a lot about this,
Yeah.
the psychology behind it all, and their digital on their site with the social proof with the reviews. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I'm real big into food, so like on Yelp, you'll see a lot of interesting reviews between, at like for example, like Nick and Sam's versus Papa's Bros and et cetera. All the steakhouse competition in Dallas. It's like the Yelp game. It's like you pay for reviews and you pay to give others bad reviews, and it's just like it's a crazy game out there when it comes to social proof.
Well, the social proof is so powerful, and you saw this we talked about in class, is that people were sending seeds to individuals in the United States because they would basically say, I know Alec, I know where he lives, I have his address, however I got it, right? And then I would buy something as you and send you seeds. That way I could show confirmed delivery of a product. Meanwhile, I'm not actually sending you a product. You didn't actually buy a product, but then I could write a review as you on the site. And that's the power of social proof, is that those reviews are so valuable that people are willing to go to the extraordinary step of poaching your personal information, acting like you and buying something, physically sending something, even of low value, to you, showing it was delivered, and then writing the review because it's now a confirmed purchase on Amazon, on other sites. That's how much social proof matters, is that people are willing to do all of that, because without it, you have trouble selling products.
No doubt. That is
In a
insane. I
competitive
didn't know
market.
people were doing that. I didn't know
Yeah.
people were going to those lengths, but I mean, it makes sense, right? That's crazy. So, Chris, to move on to some other things, man. So, you've told me a couple stories of your interactions with a few athletes, man. So one story that really made me think. This is Russell Westbrook. I believe it was before he had even gotten traded to Washington, but he was
Yeah.
on Houston, and you were telling me that you and your son had gone to a charity game, man. So what did you see about Russell Westbrook at this charity game that really like stuck
Well,
out to you?
yeah. So my son is a huge Russell Westbrook fan. I can never say his name right. Too many.
Uh,
It sounds W's, but James Harden was having a charity game right after DeMar DeRozan was traded to San Antonio, and it was DeRozan, Westbrook, and Harden, and a few other NBA stars came together at some small little rinky-dink arena in downtown Houston. I think it was like a community college or something like that. I think it only sat like maybe 2,000 people. And my son saw it on social media or whatever, and they had like $5 tickets, or you could buy like $50 tickets for, VIP section.
okay.
So I'm like, it's a charity game. It's all going to charity anyway. We'll just buy the $50 tickets because we're going to drive down. We're probably going to have to stay the night, or maybe, drive back that night. So why do $10 when we'll do 100, and it goes to a good cause? I think it was some kind of youth charity in Houston. So we were basically sitting courtside, or one row, like right behind the scorer's table at this charity game. And it was a pretty interesting game. Meek Mill was there. Um, who's the McDonald's guy?
The McDonald's guy. Oh, you're talking about Travis Scott. Travis Scott was there.
Travis Scott was there, Meek Mill, a few other rappers. Really an interesting cast of characters, and they're all playing basketball. And again, they're having fun. And so I don't know who the DJ slash guy who was announcing the game is, but Russell Westbrook was playing this and trying to get a triple double, and he actually called him out. He said, "Brother, are you trying to get a triple double in a charity game?" Which is hilarious because he was so intense. Everybody else is having fun. And one of the best moments was when Travis Scott and Meek Mill kind of squared up one on one with everybody else on the court, just watching, letting them go one on one. I mean, that was kind of a fun thing. And then Westbrook would be flying down the court, jamming things, posting up people. Like, dude, take it down a notch. You don't have to be the alpha male in every single room, and not in a charity game when we're just trying to have fun. And I don't think he came out of the game. Everybody else came out of the game, but I don't think he came out of the game because he wanted a stat pad in a charity game that nobody cared about. So that's my Russell Westbrook story.
Wow. That's just a different level of competitiveness, man.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Like
it's
obviously
a
anyone would
wrong
want to
level.
see Meek Mill, cross over Travis Scott or vice versa. And for Westbrook to just come flying in, like it just ruins the fun, man. That's crazy. That's an interesting
Well,
fact.
and a lot of times it was one or two NBA stars on the court, and then, rappers or politicians, or whoever else they had at this game. So he was going up against the championship Laker team. He was going up against maybe one NBA star whose number one concern was to not get hurt, where
Yeah.
his number one thing was to get the triple double. So, not a big Russell Westbrook fan per se.
So did you get to talk with these guys like Travis and Meek and any of the
So
players?
my son got a T-shirt from Travis Scott, I think. And then we did talk to DeMar DeRozan very briefly, tried to get a selfie, but I screwed that up. He wasn't the nicest guy in the world. But
Okay.
in general, they were just all right there. We didn't really kind of interact with them. They were kind of kept a little bit bay, but it was nice. It was a great event. I wish they'd do it more often
Yeah.
after the pandemic. It was cool.
Yeah. So you said DeMar was the one you weren't able to get the selfie with?
Yeah, I tried to take it on my phone, and then I screwed up, and then he was gone. He had to go back in the game or something. But he was
Oh, I
okay.
gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting with athletes. Some are the most easygoing, people around, very genuine dudes, and some are, obviously not the case. But that's interesting. Are there any other athletes you had good interactions with? Like I know you mentioned Kaepernick at one point.
Yeah, so I went to the University of Nevada, and so did Colin Kaepernick. And so my boys and I went to a game at Louisiana Tech University, and I think it's in Reston, Louisiana. And we just went because Nevada never plays kind of this side of the Rockies too often.
Ah,
And so it's a 6 hour drive. And so I said, hey, let's just go up there and we'll watch them play. And my boys were tiny. I want to say like 4 and 6 or 6 and 8, something like that. And so we walked up to where the players were getting ready, and my boys both had on their Nevada Kaepernick jerseys, number 10 jerseys.
nice.
And the security guard, the university police officer who travels with the team, saw me and my boys out there with their Kaepernick jerseys. So I didn't know this at the time, but he walked away, and then he walked back with Colin Kaepernick.
Ah,
And Colin came over and talked to us and was really great with the boys and signed some autographs and everything. And then the security guard came over and I said, hey, did you bring him out there for us? He goes, yeah, yeah. He goes, I'm a dad too. And I saw your kids out here with the jerseys, and Colin's a really nice guy. He likes meeting the fans. So I was like, oh, that is so awesome that you did that, because he could just, sit there and pretend we don't exist and nobody would have known the difference because we were behind a fence. So at the end of every Louisiana Tech game, the at least pre-pandemic, the fans were allowed to go on to the field, and Nevada had just clinched their division championship. And so we ran onto the field, and Colin Kaepernick was right there, and my boys ran up to him. And there was a TV crew about ready to interview him because, again, they just clinched the conference championship by beating Louisiana Tech.
ah,
And he basically Heisman's the news crew and says, hold on a second, I have to talk to these guys. And so he comes, says hi to my boys, and, they congratulated him. And we talked to him for a few minutes, and, we said, hey, we're going to look forward to seeing you play on Sundays and everything. He goes, I really appreciate that. But it was really nice that before he had to talk to the news crew, he let my boys come up and congratulate him first. So he's been a
nice.
really nice guy. And then several years later, when he was playing for the 49ers, I was working for Amazon, doing a project for Amazon, and he was in my hotel. I was in his hotel probably. And we come back from dinner, and he and his offensive line are sitting in the lobby just talking. And there are these giant security guards, Alec. I'm talking like block out the sun kind of security guards, black and
I know
probably
what you
around
mean.
blocks or whatever. And so I'm like, oh, it's Colin Kaepernick. So I walk over to him, and one of the security guards, puts his hand right on my chest, says, hold on a second, sir. Like, no, I know Colin. We're friends, right? And I walk up and he goes, hey, how are you? And I said, Colin, I don't know if you remember me, but we met at the Louisiana Tech game. And he goes, oh yeah, with your two boys. And so super nice, and we had a nice little conversation. And this is right after he started kneeling, and very gracious. And we discussed how and why he was kneeling, and it's not a protest against police or anything. It's just he couldn't physically not do anything because he kept seeing the violence and black men and women being shot, and so that's why he was doing it. He says it's been taken totally out of context, and we just talked about that, and he gave me a new perspective on it. And like I said, he's been gracious to me and my family in the 3 or 4 times we've met, and just really
That's
like him.
incredible, man. I think that speaks volumes to the person he is. That he actually told the news crew, the media, like, hold on, let me say hi to your boys, and then that he even remembered that interaction. He has hundreds, thousands of interactions with.
Well, we were the only Nevada fans at Louisiana Tech.
Okay,
So if
okay, so
you ask my wife, there
it's
were 20,000 fans in attendance, and we were the only two in blue Nevada jerseys in the entire stadium.
yeah, big
Entire stadium.
over there.
So I think at that point in time, that's kind of that turn into punch bowl scenario where we are so out of place in that he almost had to remember us. And
I,
maybe he did,
I see what
maybe
you're
he
saying.
didn't, but it was nice. He made me think he did.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome. Seems like a nice guy, and that's a whole other discussion, on the kneeling and how the media kind of flipped that around. Because he had even talked with someone, a military veteran, and asked what he should do. And the
Yeah.
military veteran, you said, you kneel to pray, you kneel to do other things. It's a sign of respect. So he's like, this is a way you can protest while still being respectful. And a lot of other stakeholders involved kind of flipped that narrative, in part for financial purposes, for like the NFL and ratings, because people were getting very upset, people that had, veterans in their family and things of that nature that were watching. So it's just a crazy scenario that's a whole other conversation we can get into.
Well, but the point of that is,
Uh,
and we talk about this in class, is that we live in a very complex world,
no doubt.
and the simple answer is rarely the best answer, and it's rarely the right answer.
For sure.
He's kneeling because he hates police. Well, he's very upset and he hates the violence that he
No
sees
doubt.
portrayed in his community. That doesn't mean he hates police, but that's so simple to say. But like so many things, it's just because it's simple doesn't make it right. Just because it's easy to put, just because A looks like it could go with D doesn't mean that A and D go together. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the middle. And so I think to your point, just like we're talking about digital earlier, you've got to push for the smart, maybe sometimes nuanced answer as opposed to just taking the simple answer and saying, well, it's simple, it must be right. Because
No
in this
doubt.
complex world, simple is rarely right.
Yeah, no, it's a complex world, and I feel like we as a society have to do a better job to not, practice like mental laziness and just like really try to think through like on a deeper level, like what does this mean?
Yeah, but
It's
we don't have time for it. But what you have to do is before you have your knee-jerk reaction or your biases kick in, you have to say, hold on a second. Let me give myself 3 seconds to think about this and think about what it is, not be told what it should be or how it should be done, and just figure out, is there a deeper reason? And I think that's the intellectual journey that marketers need to go on is
yeah,
figure out what the best answer is. Don't figure out what the easy answer is because the easy answer is not going to be the best answer in most cases, as I've said. But also, it's going to lead to suboptimal things, and then you're going to wind up chasing your tail, and that's painful to watch and painful to do.
yeah, yeah. No, get them early, so you don't have to get them as often, man. And like I love how you put it. The best answer is always better than the simplest or the easiest answer. You know what I mean? You got to dig deeper on that intellectual journey. And I don't know, man. I have a lot of optimism that society's getting there, and we're starting to, adopt more perspective and empathy in the world.
Good luck with that.
The opposite. Hopefully, man. I don't know, but Chris, you got another like 2 minutes for a little quick.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, because I know you got to run here in a second. But all right, so these are just gonna be a couple quick questions. You just hit me with a quick answer, and boom. All right, so who's the top seltzer in the game right now? Not only marketing wise, but taste, in your opinion.
The top seltzer.
Yes, sir.
I, I'm not a seltzer drinker. I go
Yeah.
straight to the vodka.
Okay,
So I will give you my favorite vodka is Lake Tahoe vodka.
there you go.
I do like Tito's,
Tito's, can't go wrong.
but there's a lot of really good vodkas out there. But I think if you're going to drink seltzer and alcohol, you might as well just do vodka and skip the
You're right
malt
too.
beverage. But
Yeah,
I think the marketing of seltzer is phenomenal, and I'm in awe of how they've created a category and brands within this category
no doubt.
in 3 years. And so it'll be interesting to see what shakes out, 2, 3 years later. But
Yeah,
the pandemic certainly has helped.
yeah, yeah. Ain't no laws when you're drinking claws, and
That's
then
right.
truly, it's crazy how it's evolved
Well,
past year,
and,
man.
and so let's talk. So White Claw is the dumbest name ever for a beverage. Dumbest name ever. White Claw as a logo is stupid for a seltzer. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Uh,
But with all that said, I'm not in the target market, and they have done an amazing job of becoming a 50,000 pound behemoth in this
no
market. And
doubt.
so kudos to them. But yeah, I'm just not the target market, but I'm absolutely in awe of what they've done.
Yeah, no, same here. Like I don't think I'm not a big seltzer guy. I'm more like you, like cut out the middleman. Let's just get straight to it. But if I'm gonna drink a seltzer, I'd probably go like a something else other than a White Claw. Like even Trulies are better, I think. But the way they market it, it's just like they have a stranglehold on the market. It's just like
Yeah.
they're like you said. But moving on to the next one. So I know you're a basketball fan. So who do you think's winning the championship this year?
Probably the Lakers.
Lakers.
I don't understand the James Harden trade at all. Uh,
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the Celtics bankrupt themselves by trading for Kevin Durant 10 years ago, and
Uh,
their GM was brought in to fix that because the franchise had no draft picks and nobody left after the Durant trade. And with
They,
all
they
that,
did
he just
like they
repeated the
did that
same
trade
mistake.
over again, but with players that are actually in their prime. Because instead of Pierce and Garnett and them giving
Yeah.
away the future for them, they're giving it up for Harden, who's in his,
Yeah,
but still,
well, what are you going to do with another ball dominant player on a team that has two ball dominant players? So I don't think,
I
and
don't know.
they were probably going to win the East anyway. So I'm going to stick with the Lakers because it's hard to bet against LeBron and AD, and they're an unselfish team, and LeBron makes everybody around him better. Harden takes the ball from as many people as he can. I think that's the difference.
That's the difference, man. I think the late Kobe Bryant said it best. Like, that's a powerful way to score the basketball and win regular season games, but you can't win a championship with it because of the chemistry, how your teammates view it when you're just constantly taking the ball out of their hands and not involved. But LeBron and those guys, it's like you said, I think it's easy to, you yourself succeed,
Yeah.
but to make others around you successful is a whole other deal, and that really.
Well, and LeBron's doing it with guys like Kuzma
Yeah,
and Caruso and guys that, Taylor Horton Tucker, guys that we didn't know until LeBron made us know them.
no doubt.
So I think that speaks volumes to what he's able to do.
No doubt. And they somehow got better in the offseason. They got Gasol. He's just a cerebral player. So they're going to be tough. They're going to be tough. I love my guy Luca down here in Dallas. So I
Yeah.
think our time will come, just not yet. But yeah, I'm
But
with you there. I got like,
Porzingis has to play a full season because that guy could hurt himself eating
yeah.
lunch with a fork. So
Well, he looked
until
good last
he's
night.
healthy enough to play a season, I don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah, no doubt. He looked good against Charlotte, but hopefully he stays healthy and we can get something going. Luca looks special. Not only that, he's a fun guy to watch.
Oh
And
yeah, I
what I
love him.
hear around people here in Dallas is that he's a nice guy as well. So happy to hear that. So last question before we end it, Chris. Really
Sure.
appreciate you doing this. So in a sentence or two, what advice do you have for people that are trying to break into the digital marketing space? How do they do it?
I think you just become 100% intellectually curious and read everything you can, sign up for every newsletter, look at every case study. We live in this amazing platinum age, if you will, where anything you need to do, there is a best practices document on that by somebody who's probably done it at the highest and best possible level. So, whatever aspect of digital marketing you want to learn, you can get a world class education just by signing up for all of these podcasts like yours, newsletters, articles. Everybody, Medium pumps out, tons of stuff every day. So, I think, if you want to be in digital, you should just start learning and then start doing. But it's all out there for the taking.
No doubt, no doubt, Chris. Well, hey, this was fun. It was nice catching up with you, my man. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'll let you get to it, man. But really appreciate you doing this. It was a good time. Hopefully, some people take some value from your insight. I know I definitely do. So, thank you, man.
All right. Take care. Great talking to you.
Don't be such a smart aleck.